Age of Sigmar Realms of Ruin is an upcoming game from Frontier Games, and I was lucky enough to get hands-on with it ahead of their recent Gamescom preview, which revealed their third of 4 races, the Night Haunt. Frontier Games is best known for their Planet Zoo and Planet Coaster series, as well as the Jurassic Park strategy games. And this game doesn't really play like either of those, which was a pleasant surprise, to say the least. It is an interesting combination of MOBA, like Dota 2, and strategy game. And it was fun. I was surprised how much fun I was having. They're definitely going for more of a competitive scene, and it feels more like a MOBA than a traditional strategy game where you're building lots of buildings all over the place. But it's very intentional. For anyone that played Warcraft 3 back in the day, it's following in that same footsteps of heroes with powers, but in this case, instead of leveling up and having a whole bunch of powers, each of your individual hero units just gets the one major power. You have 2 currencies, Command and Realmstone. Command is basically gold, and Realmstone is pretty much magic. Command is used to buy new units, while Realmstone is used to provide upgrades or to let you use their amazing magical abilities. And as I said, each unit and each hero typically get one ability, with heroes obviously getting more powerful abilities. Every match starts with you at a muster point, your basic command base that you will then push towards the other side of the map with. Like I said, very MOBA inspired. You'll then work your way across a map, typically following a lane, and along that path you will encounter an enemy settlement. Now, these nodes are sort of like bases, and once you destroy them, you can either build a traditional defense tower, something that generates command points, something generates rune stones, and a 4th one which heals nearby units and allows you to summon 1 extra unit, as you have a pretty limited capacity for the total number. I think mine is either 8 or 9 for most of the entire game. What follows then on the map is a sort of tug of war as you go back and forth trying to push your way to the far side. And I'll admit, I was sort of surprised at the way the units moved. I expected something a little sharper, I guess, for lack of a better word, more instantaneous when I click to move my unit. But this game is methodical. You'll notice it clicks, and there's a slow movement, and they start to roll across. It is very much like controlling a creep wave as it goes down these lanes. Now, that's not to say they're unresponsive. Just don't expect that you're going to have to use constant twitchy, clicky movements to succeed here. I should note that the game is releasing on both PC and Xbox, and they did have fully fledged controls for a handheld controller inside the game. Now, I didn't use them here, but as someone who typically does use controllers, it was very nice to see. And you can tell that the interface is laid out in such a way to make it as easily navigable as possible with that controller. And I think that has a lot to do with the movement of units down these lanes that I was mentioning earlier. They don't want you to have to constantly be clicking and moving around a cursor with a joystick. Even the prospect of sending a unit back to base to heal up to then push itself back out again in the next wave is automated here with the retreat button. You click it, and they will automatically return to base for you. You don't have to micro-click and manage them all the way back home again. Because the intention here is clearly online multiplayer that's also accessible competitively through the console market, in addition to PC. One of the things the company specifically talked about was the randomization of maps, the randomization of missions, and the eye towards balance. Like, you're not having 15 different units here. I believe the Stormcast Eternals will have, 5 that I know of at the end, because you have your shield guys, you have your archer guys, you have your hunter guys, which are like damage, range, plus melee. You have the flying guys, and you also have the dragon guys. And of course, that's not counting heroes. And it seems like this 5 units is what we see across all the races. And I was surprised how different they did feel from each other, even though I was just playing the Stormcast Eternals. When you're fighting the Auric Cruel Boys, even though there's a lot of them, they are very much getting smashed by your heavily armored dudes, and they seem to move faster. That's their advantage. Now, none of this compares to the Night Haunt, who are so freaking incredibly fast. I played a mission. So I played on normal with 4 other people at the same time. In this case, Party Elite, Papa Havoc, and Italian Spartacus. So to say that I cannot use my audio from that Discord conversation is an understatement. It was tremendous fun, to say the least. But I actually finished first out of all the guys playing, and that was with a baby asleep on top of me during my preview session. Not because I'm better at it, but because I just played MOBAs more, and I was like, oh yeah, I know just to move down the lane, whereas they were approaching it more like RTSs. And when it comes to games, I frankly tend to play the objective more than I'd focus on kills. But the Night Haunts, oh my goodness. The second mission has you attacking 3 chains that you have to kind of deplete their power to then move on to the next area, right? So you keep attacking it, and you hold that area, and as you hold the area, it slowly reduces its health. The problem was, the Night Haunt are so ridiculously quick and light and ephemeral, they just outran me everywhere, and it was a constant chase to get them down. Now, what I was supposed to be doing is saving up money and buying the prosecutor units that you can then fly around all over the place, fight, and then land and hold positions, take off, and keep kind of bouncing around in these lightning strikes. But I had gotten so used to that heavy, slower, heavy infantry style in the previous match that my brain could not shift fast enough to take in this new playstyle because the opponents were so radically different to fight against. The reality is, though, that the Stormcast Eternals are meant to be very versatile, much like their Space Marine counterparts, and they can do a little bit of everything, reinforcing the idea that each of these playable factions has drastically different playstyles, which makes me want to experience more of them as they are so different. None of the abilities felt overpowered, I never felt like the game was being unfair at any point, and it made me want to play more and especially see the 4th race, which more than likely will be a chaos race of some kind, as they're following, the standard 4 pillars of the Age of Sigmar, which are order, chaos, death, and destruction. And because of the way the game's built, there's obviously a large opportunity if they want to bring in other races in the future if the game does well. Now, it's funny because Age of Sigmar isn't really a hot property. This is not something people are banging down the gates to make games for. But this works really well. It feels different than the tried and true fantasy tropes we've seen elsewhere, and because of that, it looks different. And by looks, this game is gorgeous. It is absolutely a spectacle to behold. It is, as Party Elite said it during our preview session, it's what we always thought RTS games would look like in the future, and as a lover of this genre, it's great to see it come back again, even if it's in a slightly different, mutated form here. And even though this isn't directly about the game, I feel it's important to mention just how pleasant the developers and staff that I interacted with from Frontier Games were. I'm American, but I lived in England for a little bit, and I really wanted to make bangers and mash. That's not something that gets made in the American South, and so I've been trying to find a recipe for a couple days now. And I mentioned this during my gameplay session, just to sort of fill the time, because, you're stuck in a room with people for an hour, it gets really awkward. And other developers started popping into our chat room to give their advice on the best ways to make bangers and mash. One guy actually contacted his mother to get their favorite recipe for me. And that's the one I used, by the way. It was fan-friggin-tastic. Of course, this has nothing to do with Realms of Ruin, but it shows you how happy people are to work for this company and how happy they are to reach out and interact with the community, which is a very good sign going forward when you're making something like this. If everyone is happy enough in a product that they're willing to experiment and go outside the normal bounds. And that's really my first hands-on impressions of the game. It has very well-rendered cutscenes, a clear, defined story with serious voice acting happening, and excellent animation, and then you go to these set-piece maps where you're following a very specific mission objective. Now, I did feel the missions may have gone on a little too long. I think my first one was 25 minutes, my second one, attacking the chains, was 40, and I really felt that one. In fact, several people had difficulty getting through the second mission in the time we were allotted, so maybe those values need to be tweaked just a little bit. I definitely want to do deeper dives on who the Stormcast Eternals, who the Auric Cruel Boys, and the Night Haunt are when the game gets closer to release and all the information is revealed, and I hope you are also interested to see more about this game, and I look forward to you getting your hands on it on November 17th. And that is my first impression of Warhammer Age of Sigmar Realms of Ruin by Frontier Games. I hope to get another impression on it in the very near future, because I had a very good time playing it. And I hope you had a good time listening today. So, thanks for watching.